Record or yep.
Recording in progress. We're away, so I'm going to throw straight to Luise then, and thanks everyone for joining us, and away we go.
Thank you, Craig, and good evening, good morning, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining this panel, for having me, and for coming to this conversation today, which I'm very, very much looking forward to, and which I'm very much excited about, because I'll be talking about something that's been meaning a lot to me for many, many years, but which I haven't really spoken or even written about. So I have brought a very few pictures which I would like to share with you. And please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you just nod? Denise, I'm seeing you.
Yeah, that's perfect. We can see your title screen. Yep.
Perfect. So I've entitled this talk, which is meant to be an ethnographic piece, The Safe Space of Dancing, Experiencing the Becoming Moment. It's a lazy Saturday morning in Prague, the city to which I've traveled to so often for dancing, especially Brazilian zouk. We are finding ourselves entering an old building, maybe from the 18th, maybe the 19th century. After walking through a narrow hallway, we are reaching this large empty room, a danceable room. Danceable, yes, because there's a flat, even a wooden floor. And this room seems to invite us, with its high ceilings, its chandeliers, its wide windows, with its seemingly untouched space. It's a space that's like an empty stage that cries out for liveliness to unfold, as Stacey Jones has spoken about it. And the emptiness of this space is embracing us with its arms. It's inviting us for possibilities, for opportunities. It's an invitation, I feel, to explore and to become, by dancing, by co-creating moments through movement. I'm feeling moved by this liveliness that is yet to come and already here, past and present simultaneously, non-linear, barrage in my ears. This empty stage, the space holds a not yetness, and not yet temporality, as Manning and Murray have spoken about it. It touches literally the unknown in our becoming. I'm rushing to put on my dance shoes. They're flat, actually, very comfortable. They're more like socks, I would say, but they allow very smooth traveling across this floor, connecting to this floor, which will ground our movements. Oh, and do you hear this? There's a melody fading in. I feel excitement rising inside of me, and the rhythm begins to show itself. It starts vibrating through and with my body. And I think it's a traditional zouk rhythm. Slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. The sound and the rhythm begin to activate my energies. Several instruments are joining in, and they begin to govern the energy in the air and in my body. My excitement is increasing. I cannot remain still. My feet, my chest are already in motion. I want to dance with you. Would you dance with me? You're hesitating. Okay, let me take you with me. When I dance, every muscle, every bone awakens. I connect to my deepest core and my soul starts moving. After a few bars, I sometimes close my eyes in order to let the journey begin, the journey into a seemingly other world. I might even forget where my body ends and yours begins, and we seem to move and transform as one entity. I get carried away in a sense of wonder, and time has no meaning anymore, only until thirst reminds us. So would you dance with me? Yes, you're replying and smiling. My eyes are glowing with joy. So we walk onto this dance floor, and I look at you. I wonder how close I can come, how near or far you need me to be and want me to be. I take a step closer, and you seem fine. I take another. There's a flicker somewhere. I don't quite register. Maybe it was a blink, but I have a sense I'm close enough. Here it's good. It seems good here. We've never danced together before, so I'm cautious. Our hands are falling. We're touching each other's back. Embrace. We never know what and how we will become, how this embrace and this dance will unfold and potentially transform us. Every dance is different, every dance, and it begins with the embrace. Brazilian Zouk is not a popular dance yet. It's been created in Rio de Janeiro in the 1990s. It's been drawing on lambada movements and been including a lot of movements from quite a few dances, including Argentine tango, salsa, belly dancing, contemporary contact improvisation, ballet. So it keeps moving like its dances. It's not a popular dance, so a lot of dancers travel across countries to meet other small communities. It attracts literally people from all kinds of cultures and is diverse in the sense that the dancers often share intersecting identities concerning gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, class, disability, and religion. And whilst English and Brazilian Zouk often are somehow the unofficial dance languages in the international community, it might happen that we do not share the same language. Because it doesn't matter. All that matters is our appreciation of movement improvisation, of experimentation, of a co-creation, always differently. I'm feeling into our embrace. You're touching me softly, yet firmly. And I'm feeling invited to mirror your energy. Sunrise are touching my cheek and my skin, and I feel you gazing at me, then shying away. Cautious about the growing intensity of our connection, I begin closing my eyes. By embracing, we are making a difference. By physically touching, by touching our lives, the assemblages, by allowing to be touched. Touch is one way shapings occur, Erin Manning reminds me. Or speaking with Jonathan Wyatt, touch in this framing is more than what we commonly understand, skin on skin. So it would include this too. Touch is the push-pull of relating that makes us. Relating across time, across substances, across species. So we move across the dance floor and we are playing with touch, with embrace, with movements. We're tilting, we're turning, we're dreaming together. And after some time, I don't remember how long, Hans Zimmer's Time is fading in. It's one of my favorite pieces. And I'm already touched. I can hardly put in words what I'm beginning to feel. It's like an overwhelming wave of energy. It's filling me, it's flowing through me. Is this mine? Is this yours? Is it ours? I'm at loss of words. All I can feel is a deep, intense connection to you, the floor, the beat and the rhythm, the growing volume in the orchestra. This very old room with its high ceilings, the sun rays, the other dancers, Hans Zimmer and the vibrating air. I'm so full and so happy, I begin to cry. And my salty tears are touching my lips. They're waving at yours. And my self-consciousness and my memory begin to fade. I have almost no thought, no memory of what me or you or us even means. All there is connection and motion and intensity paired with a feeling of timelessness. After some indefinite time, there's a Whiteheadian flickering that indicates or somehow makes me sense the transformation coming into awareness. We might only vaguely notice the imminence of the moment unfolding and the potentially due to its intensity, we might not really grasp it, but there's a flickering. And in moments of transitions like this, we might even feel the eye transforming, and we might feel the I becoming, as Jackson and Masai have asked us, especially also in autoethnographic writing. The I then is performative, it's contradictory, it's fluid, it's always in motion. With Manning, it's somehow porous or leaky. It's accepting the post-human invitation. Or speaking with Braidotti, we are then always subjects in process, not strictly bound and without fixed identities. So we enter a state of flow and we get carried away in this sense of wholeness and wonder, like a bubble, flying, floating, until it bursts. And again, it doesn't matter who we are, but it matters that we are sharing and co-creating these moments. Dancing zouk, Brazilian zouk, and embracing movement together, sharing improvisation and creativity, somehow invites the flickering experience of wonder, of bubbles bursting, merging, reforming. But how long does this wonder last? From morning till night, like our dance day? Or is there always a flickering wonder, a wonder that wants to be allowed into our awareness? Then dancing maybe is just a safe and empty space, an open space that is inviting us to this potentiality, to allow it to unfold and to experience it and to experiment with it. It's become quite late, I know, and I'm very, very grateful for my tiredness. How are you doing? Before parting and leaving this dance floor tonight, I want to ask you to come back. I want to ask you to keep practicing dancing, writing, inquiring about it. Because I think dancing and writing about dancing offers a way of changing perspectives, experimenting and improvising imminently. So I would like us to return because Anne Harris has asked us and has told us we learn by returning. So I hope to see you soon, and I thank you for the dances. I hope to be back for real, whatever that means, very soon. Thank you.
That was just, I know Denise is cheering, I know I'm cheering as well. That was just, that was really hard, really beautiful work. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And just the two images in the background. I was watching Denise's face when you went to that second image, and mine was exactly the same. It was just, yeah, there's these two beautiful images just underpinned your work so beautifully. We'll do some more questions later on, but for now, Paula, I think we have you down for a second person. So are you ready to go? And
yes, let me just attempt to share my screen. Give me a little wave or something when you see it.
yeah, so we have I think the start of a PowerPoint. There's 5 pictures on it, and you're down at the bottom right. Yep, we're ready to go then.
Yeah, lovely. That's great. Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank the conference organisers for the invitation, for the beautiful bubble prompt, the opportunity to participate. It's my first time participating, so I snuck in on the first session last night, which means that I've had a whole sleep and you guys have been going for hours and hours. So impressive. I'm going to share some of my photos and poetry. Eventually, if I have time at the end, I'll speak the poetry, but otherwise I'll just speak about it. So my proposal was in the form of 4 tanka, sketching a simple line between the conference title and 4 of my fragmentary experiences during the 2020 lockdown. I know that for some on the call, lockdown feels much more present than that. For me, I mostly associate it with last year. And these were moments that contained bubbles. And as you can see, I've lined up the poetry with the images that I was also working with. My own 2020 lockdown was boundaried and enhanced and enlivened by being in the process of writing up my doctorate, and then by my viva, and then by my corrections, and finally by my completion. And I don't want to say that without also stating the context, acknowledging that I'm childless with very few caring responsibilities and a partner who likes to cook. I was studying part-time. I was employed in a white-collar job that didn't disappear. I was able to work remotely. I live opposite 2 supermarkets. I have a room that I can use as a study with a door that shuts, so I could be alone and I could be in company. Poetry wasn't where I started in my doctoral work, but it quickly became central to it. It was useful to me in supporting inquiry that tries to look closely at the to and fro between my own subjective life and my apparent social realities, that seeks to remain open to wonder while also cultivating a critical questioning stance. Returning to the bubble image, this was about work that acknowledges, that owns the ephemeral qualities of our lives, experiences, efforts, without despairing about the transient nature of them. My own values are to be as revisionist truthful as I can bear to be, while still having room for delight in the beauty of a sunset, a loving relationship, a well-crafted artwork. So how did poetry show up for me in lockdown? As I've said, it was a year of completing my part-time, self-funded midlife doctorate. This was a doctorate that I started when I'd just woken up to the emerging climate crisis, and I still thought it was basically a big, innocent misunderstanding that could be cleared up by technology. And it was a doctorate during which I reluctantly learned that I needed to question patterns of power and exploitation and to look for my own possible and actual roles in making and sustaining those patterns, sometimes as victim, sometimes as beneficiary. 2020 was a year of taking the artful and embodied research methods that I'd practiced during my doctoral inquiry, walking, photography, collage, poetry, and applying them to explore my shifting sense of boundaries and permissions, provoked by suddenly finding myself in lockdown, reduced to and released into living in the immediacy of one small neighborhood. 2020 was a year of finishing my doctorate while hiding from the global effects of a zoonotic disease that showed, rather than telling, the fragility of our human systems. The illusion of traditional assumptions in much of mainstream Western culture that humans are somehow apart and above, owners not creatures, in some illogical way, not subject to the consequences of actions taken which affect our environment. And so I haven't read the tanker as I've gone. Those were little experiments. At the end of the day, they don't feel. They were my attempts to bring something real onto the page. But this poem, which is quite newly minted, is much more central to the things I've been trying to explore during this experience. And so I'd like to finish by reading it. So it's Pantoum. When I started walking regularly, it seemed straightforward to me. Town bad, full of litter and darkness. Country good, clean, open and green. It seemed straightforward to me. Town is where humans seal themselves, while country is clean, open, green, where we reconnect with nature. Town, I thought, is where humans hide. pretending we are not nature descended. Well, country is where humans reconnect, remember our deep sea common origins. We pretend we are not nature descended, easier to hurt a thing you're not part of. In truth, we share life's deep sea origins. Humans are part of nature everywhere. It's easier to hurt a thing you're not part of. But nature's part of town life, no mistake. And humans part of nature everywhere. Life pushes, pulses to exist in every place. Nature's a part of town life, no mistake. Foxes, nettles, squirrels, thieving gulls. Life clings to life. Life pulses to exist. A universe hiding in every drainpipe. Foxes, nettles, squirrels, thieving gulls make lives in town, in amongst the litter. A universe hides under every drainpipe. I see them now, since I started walking. Okay, that's it from me. I'll stop sharing just now.
I lost my mute button. Sorry, that was really nice. Thank you, Paula. Really, as someone who's just finished my PhD and was part-time working full-time, and a lot of things you're talking about resonated. And thank you. It was really nice to hear myself in someone else's voice. It was Denise and Guido.
Okay.
Is there a third person joining you?
They're just two of us, but we've got some friends in the audience, so we encourage them to speak up and speak with us if they'd like.
Over to you guys.
Okay, Guido, you doing okay? You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Craig, I'm going to share the screen part of the way through, so but just not just yet. All righty. I think we'll just go ahead and say hello.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me. You know, like Paula, but I never had higher education, and last year I started the Bachelor of Arts, and I'm on the second year of the Bachelor of Arts in Writing and Digital Media. And one day I dreamed to also be a middle-aged doctorate candidate, but you know, I'm a few years away from it. So it was very inspiring to listen to Paula talking, because it reminded me that, you know, there's more of us out there. I'm a father of 3 as well, and it makes it a bit harder, but let's go. Anyway, so my name is Guido Melo.
And hello, my name is Denise Chapman.
In the year of 2020, from around mid-March to the end of May, Melbournians sat uncomfortable as we were experiencing our first lockdown.
Yes, and while these circles of safety within our homes felt isolating, the cyber circles on social media and time on Zoom felt like a lifeline.
Social media seemed to soothe or at least appease the uneasiness, and Zoom allowed us to connect to others.
However, for us, as two global Africans from the Americas, the last Monday of May sucked the air from our bubbles as we mourned the life of George Floyd.
Black Lives Matter became a global movement, and all eyes were watching.
And we began to notice that we were being collected on our social media platforms to create a space, to create a space in which we could critically unpack this collecting. In order to survive this, We do and did, as Audre Lorde and Toni Morrison share, we story as it's vital and necessary for our existence.
The following is our critical, poetic autoethnography.
We drink. We were thirsty. We drink from digital streams to stay in the know. We sipped and we gulped from digital wells, seeking time before the COVID foe.
Hello. I just wanted to send you a quick video message and just say yes, all right. We'll make or rather the recording. All righty, so today we're going to be talking about whiting. And I know that this might be a little bit out of place, but it's just the continuation from the last time we were going into that space. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off with a poem.
I am the canary in the coal mine, the viewer of the puppet master's strings. I am the litmus test for what you swim in, the world's mudsill. I am concerned.
So Denise, this poem symbolizes what for you?
Well, you could see in that first video, or at least the visual poetic display that I shared earlier, that, you know, at first I felt excited to be on Zoom. I was like, this is great. I get to be at home. I can save on gas, I get to save on petrol. But then we started to get this feeling of feeling quite worn. And much like the canary in the coal mine.
Did you feel that our skins were being particularly targeted?
Yes, yes, yes. I felt that if anything, we were being tried on. We were in spaces where we were most of the time the only Black faces in the space. And with 2020 and Black Lives Matter, it made it really, really challenging.
It brought some discomfort. So I'll read a poem. Why do I get dressed to go to Zoom, Dad? My daughter asks. She doesn't know yet that in that box, I am not me. I represent an entire continent. They ask me to speak, but they don't want to listen. Smiling to bring comfort, but solace never arrives. Not for me, and not for them.
Guido, this is really powerful, and I'm just thinking about you with your little ones, and what does this poem mean to you?
Yeah, I think you know, the innocence of my daughter, and then the cycles that we go through, and the advance of technologies will not protect our peoples through the violence that racism and white supremacy can cause. And the discomfort is the pain that comes from knowing that And it's interesting because these poems and these writings are screenshot from that time. And we're living through really difficult times. And we felt no hope, especially with the Trump presidency and the lack of vaccines that was the whole 2020. So there's a lot of despair on these poems. Don't you think, Denise?
Yes, yes. And, you know, it was really, really difficult for me as an academic, and being the only Black person in my faculty, full stop. It was really, really difficult because there were so many moments where I felt like I wanted to say, look, I'm juggling a lot. I'm thinking of home, my parents. I'm frightened for my parents. They, you know, I don't know if they're going to get a vaccine. They work in medicine. And Guido, you had the same, you know, challenge in, you know, for Brazil. And
absolutely. Yeah. And it all began with the bushfires, right?
yes, yes, yes. So here we'll jump into another poem. Turn on the bushfires, pour the pandemic in the pan, add some spice to this rice and stir. Seal up the Aussie lid and watch the wickeds bubble and boil. Don't wait, mate. Eat it now for the perfect storm.
Hey, Denise. Hope you're okay. Thought I'd reach out to you on this day. Seen your Twitter feed trending, so I hope I'm not late to collect and retweet your tears and be your best mate. If you just put yourself forward and talk about George, the institution would appreciate Black bodies to gorge.
Yes, Guido, that was,
Right. Yeah, sorry.
was really, well, I think your next poem really shares a lot in this case as well.
White flight. Audience is seated, waiting for my premiere. Thought I was in the gallery, but the playbill read center stage. Pushed to the spotlight. My role, my cast, Mr. Representation. With a cortisol smile, the spectators know I am there. Like urubus, they flapping. My presence is sensed. Green screams charge the air. My melanin says it all. An orchestrated meal, a satisfied gaze, full bellies they flap, distorted senses leaving scraps, performing yet another white flight.
Zooming while Black. Zoom, click, leave meeting. I was left swatting the mist of her hateful words. She came into my home, eyed my fragile possessions, glazed over my Jim Crowed ancestors, glared at my Black arms wrapped round my Black babies, framed us, shifted Octavia B's spine to an alternative future, made Audrey say, oh my Lord, tilted my bookshelf silent, then hurled her words like a bowling ball. Her words rolled down the gutter. The words shaved my eyes. The words I saw as I scrolled down the chat, and you will be teaching children to communicate hate, 'cause eyes ain't allowed to make criteria that marks your wake?
When you call Islamophobia, I listen. When you call anti-Semitism, I listen. When you call anti-Asianness, I listen. When you call misogyny, I listen. When you call homophobia, I listen. On that moment, my humanity connects to yours, and I feel your pain. I empathize with your sufferings, and we become one. Ubuntu. I am because you are. But when I call racism, and you don't listen, a piece of me is taken. On that moment, therefore, it's not my humanity that is in question. It is yours. For when you don't see your reflex on me, you are incomplete. Until you do see me as a human, a full human, your humanity will be the one in question. Not mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You need to stop sharing this. I'm also going to post a link for the poet, for the last poem that I read on the chat. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Denise and Guido. It's, again, just three beautiful, beautiful pieces of audio ethnography, starting with an invitation to dance, and I just feel like we've just been swirling around ever since. So, thank you all so much. We probably have about 10 minutes for questions, and I think I saw Karen had her hand up as I was scrolling through before, but might have been something in chat. I think sorry, did anyone have a question? I can't find any hands up, but shout them out. Plenty of comments in the chat, so I know it's really hard to present and keep up with the chat, but particularly Guido and Denise have just been on. If you scroll through, there's much love there, and lots of people, your words resonating with people in their own way. So, in their own empathic way, perhaps, Guido. But thank you for that poem at the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Luise, it's Luise? Yes, Luise. I really, really enjoyed your, the whole idea of the embodiment of, or this discussion of, would you like to dance? I'm just curious if you could tell us a little bit about, you know, what, is there a dance? Is there a particular dance that you absolutely, you're like, this is my dance. If I had to dance just one dance, this would be the dance.
Thank you for asking this, Denise. Today I would say it is Brazilian souk, but it's been different dances in the last years, my dance journey. So it's written like this. So I actually really, I mean, I appreciated your poems just so much, but I was looking for a connection between our talks, and when I saw the Portuguese Brazilian souk, so that's how it's written.
Yeah, is the zouk a cousin of forró? I used to dance forró.
Yeah, it's related. Forró is related, but
yeah. I grew up dancing forró back.
Yeah. It was two Brazilians who created it, bringing forró and lambada really into connection in Rio de Janeiro, and since then it's been spreading from, I think, Brazil across Latin America, and then the usual way it goes up to North America to Melbourne. Well, Melbourne was one of the hubs, to New Zealand and Australia, and then to Europe and Asia, and
yeah,
I'm not sure about Africa.
The whole dancing in Latin America is really an inheritance from the indigenous populations and the African populations. Both of those people connected, and they love music. And you have all these styles of music in Brazil, in Peru, in Colombia. The bigger the African population, the more styles there are. So you have the cumbia and the tango. Even not many people know, because the Argentinian population is very white today. But the tango is African. You know, it's Afro descendants in Argentina that created the tango. So it's a very beautiful connection. I was very happy when I started to hear you talking about Zouk.
Yeah, and the music is actually Caribbean. So that's why they call it Brazilian Zouk, because it's actually from, I think, originally Guadeloupe and Martinique. And there's been a lot of debate. Is this Zouk? Because Zouk is a hip dance, a couple dance, where you just connect on the hips. And Zouk, Brazilian Zouk, then is a very white dance where you change the embrace, the distance to one another. It's very circular, but it's not before to go to bed dance, So.
And have you been to Brazil yourself?
No, I had a trip scheduled before COVID, but yeah.
I was going to Copenhagen anyway. Never happened.
So did that answer your question, Denise? But
Yes.
speaking a little maybe to what you've been saying, I've been reflecting, because there are a lot of debates in the dance community as well. As you just said, Guido, it's a dance originating with a lot of movements originating from Africa, but it keeps on transforming. But does it matter, or to what degree do we need to reflect on, the origins and the movements and the history of these dances? So there are actually unspoken and sometimes spoken debates about, it's like, this debate about indigenous knowledge. Do I have the right to make use of it in my own work? The same with dancing. To what degree do we need to acknowledge, and how do we do this? Because the dance, of course, changes when it's traveling across cultures as well.
I guess the original peoples, when we were, thousands of years in Africa, when we were sharing our knowledge, we never thought of in that everyone could come. I think everyone is welcome, as long as there's an understanding, historical understanding. I think there's no, yeah.
I was just going to say that I was thinking about the collecting, that collecting of that knowledge, and that was one of the things that I guess linked up with ours, that Guido and I were really feeling this sense of feeling collected last year. That it was, that it was, one of the phrases that I used, was put yourself forward. That was what someone wrote to me, emailed me, and said, we're just looking at your Twitter feed, and we'd like you to put yourself forward, and I'm like, for what? What are you talking about? And then I realized, it's that almost wanting to grab hold of that moment, but it felt more like a taking of our bodies.
I would like to ask Paula as well, like, how long did it take for you to finish your PhD, and what was it? What did you do?
I'll start with the second one first. I stumbled back into academia through becoming really concerned about the climate crisis. That was my starting point. But in my day job, I work for a bank, and I started with a very Lego bricks, oh yeah, surely this is just an innocent misunderstanding, and it's just like you've overdrawn on your bank account, and like a really transactional relationship. And the thing that tipped me from my master's into my doctorate was this suddenly noticing how that whole conversation depends on a fiction of separation. Now, I know we've been living in little bubble separations, but this was this idea that I could just consume and it wouldn't have, I wasn't part of the thing I was consuming, and I could hurt it because it wasn't me. And it was that moment of that shift of thinking, oh my God, what are we doing to ourselves? That tipped me from the master's into the doctorate and then the stuff. And it was really with the doctorate that I tipped from kind of just like my master's was just a sort of emotional processing, a kind of like screaming into the void at what was going on. And the doctorate was when I started to be like, okay, how do I respond? The thing is, it still stayed as a should. How should I respond? Like it was an academic question, like a theoretical question, rather than our planet that we're interacting with. And poetry bubbled up really quickly for me as the way to tip backwards and forwards between that subjective and the places I was trying to live in. Now, to answer your question about the time, I mentioned the master's on purpose because the content of the master's and the content of the doctorate for me was really closely interlocked. So taking those two things together, it took me 6 years to get from the beginning to the end, but I really felt that they were a continuation of the same thing.
Wow. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
It must have been hard. But,
It was kind of a lifesaver actually during lockdown to have something else to think about.
So do you feel that poetry is kind of an escape to your inner self, or a deeper diving? Because the academic probably lives in really rational, and then the poetry is sort of that diving to the irrational, the sort of core. Is that sort of what you felt?
Well, I kind of chopped out the I had two sections in my first version of the paper. One where I quoted from Sandra Faulkner, who I know was in the conference earlier in the day, and another bit where I quoted from Paulo Freire. And I'm quite pleased I chopped both of them out and just stayed with my with my own words. But the thing I was going to say from Sandra was about how poetry gives us a pathway into her phrase is radical subjectivity, which I'm sure is a familiar phrase in this community, but this idea of our concrete specifics becoming universal as we create something that the audience can relate to. So I kind of I ended up dwelling in a version of academic experience that was trying to be on that, the flip-flopping backwards and forwards between subjective living and experience of truth. And the attitude that I came to dwell in, I guess, was the thing I said, like on the one hand, trying to be kind of constructively cynical about my every thought, and on the other hand still committing myself to the poetry, still behaving and believing as in the moment, backwards and forwards between those two things.
Fascinating. And again, another Brazilian connection with Paulo Freire. It's like almost like I'm meant to be here. There's Paulo Freire with you, Luise talking about Brazilian souk, and it's like, yeah, I love those synchronicities. It's very special.
And then Paula and Guido, what made you choose particularly poetry as your form of performance?
You know, there's this Brazilian singer that he says, poetry is the most violent version of the facts, you know, and it sounds more beautiful in Portuguese because it's poesia é a mais dura versão dos fatos. And I love that. It's like, I could never translate. I've been trying to translate this for years and it doesn't work. And I think it's a place that I allow myself to be both loving and violent. Like I really put my rage and all my love into the poems. And it's really a place where I really go inside of myself and try to searching inside of my brain what's happening. And I guess it's the obvious, for me, it's really the obvious way. That's at least for me. I don't know, it's for how Denise feels it.
I think it's the closest way to storying that I think I grew up with. It was, I thought that everyone's parent and grandparent spoke in metaphors. And so it wasn't until someone pointed it out. It's really difficult, we're getting this, and I'm like, well, but don't you get, yeah. So I think much like Guido, I feel this was the way to speak that most closely resembled, where my family is from. And so my grandfather and my maternal grandmother and grandfather are of the Gala Geechee people and community in the Low Country area of South Carolina. And so they were brought from very specific areas of West Africa, specifically to farm indigo and rice. And so they had the technologies for that, but they also had a very specific way of speaking, a very specific way of communicating that was a blend of those different West African languages and together with 17th century English. And so if you can imagine that. And so I think that this was at least the closest for me.
I'm just reading on a chat that Catherine Thomas said she felt the power of your words for all of the three of us, the four of us, and not breathing, catch my breath, those self afterwards. Can you each maybe speak about the space of produce after sharing your poetry or dances? And she said she's sorry she can't use the camera.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask at the panel if you can respond to the question in 30 seconds or less, because the keynote starts in about 3 minutes, and people might need some time to get a quick break. So 30 seconds or less, and then I'll need to wrap up. Sorry, Guido.
That's all right. I'll go first and then quick. Usually I'm probably just gonna go, decompress after this. I think it's that's how I feel. I just need to drink some water and think about something else.
I think I think I shared a little bit about it earlier. So the origins of why poetry. So so I'll pass it on to the other two folks to maybe touch on it. Touch further.
I guess I'd just say it's not so much about the performance, but my attempt in poetry is a kind of stilling of the breath and trying to hear the thing that's beyond. It's really trying to listen. So in a sense, kind of breath feels very integral to the poetic process.
Yeah, and for me, I would say it's all about the energies or the changing energies and trying to find ways to express, but also to really share them and to experiment with that.
Thanks, everyone. I love the conversation. I've loved the presentation. I've loved the conversation since. But I need to end the recording and close the window down. If you don't have the link for the keynote, I'll put it into the chat about a couple of minutes ago. But we need to wrap up here and head across to the other link for the keynote. So, thanks, everyone.